The red and blue lights sliced through Georgetown's evening calm like knives through silk. Marcus Webb stood against the patrol car, wrists locked in steel behind his back. The metal bit into his skin with every breath. Phones lifted around him. A dozen strangers became witnesses, their cameras capturing everything. Marcus kept his face neutral, his voice steady. "I'm asking for your badge numbers. That's my right." Officer Brennan stepped closer, his smirk visible in the harsh LED lights. He was late 30s, built like someone who spent too much time at the gym. "You'll get them when we process you downtown." Marcus's wife appeared at the edge of the crowd, her emerald green dress catching the light. Her face crumpled when she saw the handcuffs. She tried to push forward, but Officer Hayes, younger, nervous energy radiating off him, blocked her path. "That's my husband," she said, voice breaking. Brennan didn't even look at her. "Ma'am, step back." The restaurant manager emerged from Rosewood, tablet in hand. "Officers, there's been a mistake. Mr. Webb has a reservation." "He's a valued guest." Brennan waved her off like she was smoke. "This doesn't concern you." Marcus felt the weight of every eye on him. 30 years of living right, serving honorably, building trust. All of it meant nothing in this moment. He was just another black man in handcuffs, another story, another hashtag waiting to happen. He thought of his brother's words from years ago. "If they ever cross the line, call me." Tonight the line wasn't just crossed, it was obliterated. Marcus's voice cut through the murmurs. "I get one phone call, right?" Brennan's smirk widened. "You're not under arrest yet." "Then uncuff me." Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Brennan's radio crackled. He ignored it. Marcus held his gaze. "One call." "That's the law." Brennan nodded to Hayes, who retrieved Marcus's phone from the evidence bag. Hayes held it up, hands shaking slightly. Marcus dictated the number. The phone rang once, twice. A voice answered, deep, familiar, concerned. "Marcus?" "James." Marcus's voice stayed level. "I need you." The line went quiet. "Then where are you?" "Outside Rosewood, Georgetown. I'm in handcuffs." Another pause. When James spoke again, his tone had changed. It was the voice that made senators nervous, that made federal courtrooms go silent. "I'm 10 minutes away. Don't say another word." The call ended. Marcus looked at Brennan. The officer's smirk had vanished. 3 hours earlier, Marcus Webb had stood in front of 40 kids at the Anacostia Community Center, sunlight streaming through the tall windows. He wore a simple navy blue sweater and jeans, his Marine Corps pin on his collar, the only hint of his decorated past. The kids surrounded him after his presentation, hands raised, voices overlapping. "Did you really save 12 people? Can I see your medals? Were you scared?" Marcus knelt to their level. He always did. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you are. A small girl named Keisha touched his pin. "My daddy says heroes wear capes." Marcus smiled. "Your daddy's right. But sometimes they wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear aprons. Sometimes they look just like your mama when she works 2 jobs to keep you fed." The center's director, Mrs. Patterson, watched from the doorway. She'd known Marcus since he returned from his second tour in Afghanistan. He'd chosen to come home to D.C., to the neighborhood that raised him, and build something lasting. His non-profit, Warrior's Path, helped veterans transition to civilian life. He'd started it in a church basement 5 years ago. Now they had an office, 3 full-time staff, and partnerships with major corporations. But Marcus never forgot where he came from. Every Tuesday he came to Anacostia. Every Tuesday he reminded these kids that their zip code didn't define their destiny. His phone buzzed. A text from his wife Diana. "Table confirmed for 8 p.m. Can't wait. Love you." Tonight was their 15th anniversary. Marcus had reserved a table at Rosewood 6 months ago, the restaurant where they'd had their first date, back when they were broke law students sharing one entree. Now he could afford the full menu. He typed back, "On my way." "You're going to love your gift." The gift sat in his car. a first edition of Diana's favorite novel signed by the author. He'd spent months tracking it down. Marcus said goodbye to the kids, exchanged a few words with Mrs. Patterson about next week's veterans' job fair, then headed to his car. The evening air was crisp, autumn arriving early. He hummed as he drove, thinking about Diana's smile, about the life they'd built together. He thought about his brother James, who'd called that morning to congratulate them. James, the U.S. Attorney General, the man who'd made history, who carried the weight of justice on his shoulders. Their mother would have been proud. She'd died 5 years ago, but Marcus felt her presence in moments like these. Two boys from Southeast D.C., both fighting for what's right in their own ways. Marcus arrived at Georgetown 40 minutes early. He found parking 3 blocks from Rosewood, locked his car and started walking. The neighborhood glowed with old money elegance. Brick townhouses, wrought iron fences, couples strolling hand in hand. He belonged here. He'd earned the right to belong anywhere. The thought felt like armor. It would shatter in less than 2 minutes. The patrol car appeared from nowhere, slowing to match Marcus's pace. He noticed it immediately, old habit from his military training. He kept walking, casual but aware. The car pulled alongside him. 2 officers emerged. Officer Brennan moved with predatory confidence. Officer Hayes followed, younger, uncertain in his movements. "Stop right there," Brennan said. Marcus stopped. His mind catalogued details. Brennan's hand near his weapon. Hayes's nervous glance, the car's camera light blinking red. "Can I help you, officers?" Marcus kept his voice neutral. "ID now." Brennan's tone allowed no question. Marcus reached slowly for his wallet, narrating his movements. "I'm reaching into my back pocket for my wallet. I'm not armed." He produced his driver's license. Brennan examined it, took his time, then looked up. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" "Walking to dinner." "I have a reservation at Rosewood." Brennan's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Rosewood? That's a fancy place. It's my anniversary." "Sure it is." Brennan handed the ID to Hayes. "Run it." Marcus felt the familiar weight settling on his chest, the weight every black man knows, the invisible tax collected at moments like these. "Officer, I haven't done anything wrong." "Why are you stopping me?" "We received a report of a suspicious person in the area." "You match the description." Marcus looked around. The street was nearly empty. He was the only black man visible. "What description?" "Black male, 40s, blue shirt." Marcus wore a charcoal gray button-down. Close enough, apparently, when the real description was simply black. Hayes returned. "He's clean. No warrants, no record." Brennan didn't seem pleased by this information. "Where'd you park?" 3 blocks west. "Show me your registration." "It's in my car." "Then we'll walk there together." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Am I being detained?" "I'm conducting an investigation." "Of what crime?" Brennan stepped closer. "You want to make this difficult?" Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my wife to let her know I'll be late." "Put the phone down." Brennan's hand moved to his belt. "I have the right to—" "Put it down now." Brennan's voice cracked like a whip. Marcus froze, phone in hand. Hayes shifted nervously. A couple across the street stopped walking. Time slowed. Marcus saw it happening before it happened. Brennan's decision already made. Hayes too scared to intervene. The cameras that would capture everything but change nothing. Brennan grabbed Marcus's wrist. "Hands behind your back, for what?" Marcus didn't resist, but he didn't comply. "What crime have I committed?" "Resisting an officer." "I haven't resisted anything." Brennan twisted Marcus's arm behind his back. The phone clattered to the sidewalk. Hayes moved in, and suddenly Marcus was against the patrol car, metal handcuffs clicking into place. The crowd grew. Phones appeared like fireflies. Diana's voice cut through the murmurs. "Marcus!" And then she was there, her emerald dress bright against the evening shadows, her face a mask of horror. "That's my husband." "What are you doing?" Brennan blocked her path. "Ma'am, step back or you'll be arrested too." The restaurant manager appeared, tablet clutched to her chest. "Officers, Mr. Webb is telling the truth. He has an 8 o'clock reservation. He's been here before." Brennan didn't even look at her. "This is police business." Marcus tested the handcuffs. Too tight. His wrists would bruise. He thought of his students, his staff, his brother. He thought of every conversation he'd had about staying calm, complying, surviving. He'd done everything right. And here he was anyway. Marcus's mind split into 2 tracks. One track stayed present, cataloguing badge numbers, noting witnesses, recording every word for the lawsuit that would come. The other track spiraled inward, drowning in rage and grief. He'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He'd pulled wounded Marines from burning vehicles. He'd held dying men and whispered lies about how they'd be okay. The government had pinned medals on his chest, had thanked him for his service, and now he stood cuffed like a criminal for the crime of walking while black. The cameras captured everything. His humiliation would be viral by midnight. His students would see, his staff, his donors. Everyone who'd ever looked at him and seen competence, strength, dignity, they'd see this instead. Diana's tears cut him deeper than the handcuffs. She stood 10 feet away, held back by haze, her phone recording. Her dress, emerald green, his favorite color, was supposed to make tonight special. Now it was just a costume in a tragedy. Marcus thought of his mother. She'd scrubbed toilets in government buildings, where her sons would one day walk as equals, or so she'd believed. She'd pressed their church clothes every Sunday, polished their shoes until they shined, taught them to speak properly, to stand straight, to be undeniable. "You have to be twice as good," she'd said. Twice as good to get half as much. Marcus had been 3 times as good. He'd followed every rule, crossed every T, dotted every I, and it didn't matter. It had never mattered. A memory surfaced. James, at 23, fresh from law school, pulled over for driving erratically in his brand-new suit. James had been on his way to his first day at the Justice Department. The officer had made him sit on the curb for 40 minutes while backup arrived. James had called Marcus that night, voice shaking. "No matter how high we climb, they'll always see us on the curb." Marcus had tried to comfort him. Now he understood. You could serve your country, build communities, change lives, and still be reduced to a threat in an instant. The handcuffs dug deeper. Marcus focused on his breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Marine Corps stress management. It barely worked. His phone lay on the sidewalk, screen cracked. He thought of James's number programmed under emergency contact. He'd never expected to use it like this, but maybe that's why James had put himself in position. Maybe James had always known this moment would come. Marcus and James Webb grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in southeast D.C., where gunshots punctuated summer nights and sirens sang lullabies. Their mother, Patricia Webb, worked 3 jobs: breakfast shift at a diner, afternoon cleaning offices, evenings at the library. The library job was her favorite. She'd bring home damaged books marked for disposal, and the boys would read by flashlight after she left for her night shift. James loved law books, even the dry procedural ones. Marcus preferred history, especially military history. Patricia had one rule: excellence, not good. Not great, excellent. The world will judge you by different standards, she'd say, pressing their school uniforms at midnight, so you don't get to be average. James took that lesson to Georgetown Law. Marcus took it to the Marine Corps recruiting office the day after he turned 18. Patricia had cried, her baby boy going to war, but she'd understood. Service ran in the family. Marcus did 2 tours in Afghanistan. He'd enlisted as infantry, made sergeant by 23. His unit called him Webb or Coach because he couldn't help teaching, even in firefights. Stay low. Watch your angles, breathe. The medal came from Kandahar. An IED hit their convoy. Marcus pulled 4 Marines from the burning vehicle while taking fire. He'd had 3 broken ribs and a concussion. He didn't remember most of it. He came home at 25 with a purple heart, a bronze star, and nightmares that made sleep dangerous. James was already at the Justice Department, working his way up through civil rights cases. Their mother was dying, stage 4 cancer, too far gone when they caught it. She made them promise 2 things before she died. First, take care of each other. Second, fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Marcus kept that promise by starting Warrior's Path. He'd seen too many veterans come home broken, lost between who they were and who they'd become. He built something to catch them. James kept it by prosecuting hate crimes, police misconduct, voting rights violations. He made enemies. He made history. When the president appointed him Attorney General, Marcus had stood in the front row of the Senate confirmation hearing, watching his brother promise to uphold justice for all. Their mother's favorite phrase echoed in Marcus's head now. Justice delayed is justice denied. She'd gotten that from Martin Luther King Jr. She'd believed in the long arc bending toward justice. Standing here in handcuffs, Marcus wondered if she'd been wrong, or if the arc bent so slowly that individual lives got crushed beneath its weight. Marcus watched Officer Brennan pace, radio pressed to his ear. Brennan kept his voice low, but Marcus caught fragments. Under control. No, he's secured. Right, understood. Something wasn't right. Brennan's confidence had calcified into something harder, more deliberate. This wasn't random. This was practiced. Hayes stood nearby, avoiding everyone's eyes. The younger officer shifted his weight constantly. A tell Marcus recognized from poker games. Hayes knew something, and it was eating him alive. The restaurant manager, her name tag read Catherine Reeves, as approached again. This time she held her tablet like a shield. Officer Brennan, I have Mr. Webb's reservation confirmation here. His credit card on file. His previous visits. Would you like to see? Brennan barely glanced. That's not relevant. How is it not relevant? You claimed he was suspicious. Ma'am, I won't ask again. Step back, but Catherine didn't step back. She was a white woman in her 50s, probably a manager for 20 years. She'd dealt with difficult people before. I'm calling corporate. This is unacceptable. Brennan's jaw tightened. Call whoever you want. Marcus watched the exchange and felt something click into place. Brennan wasn't improvising. He'd expected resistance. He'd expected witnesses. And he didn't care. Marcus thought back, the stop, the escalation, the handcuffs, each step following a script. How many times had Brennan done this? How many black men had stood exactly where Marcus stood now? He asked quietly, how many? Brennan turned. What? How many people have you arrested on this block for matching a description? Brennan's eyes narrowed. Watch yourself. It's a simple question. Marcus kept his voice level. You seem very comfortable with this process. Hayes flinched. The younger officer looked at Brennan, then away quickly. Marcus pressed. How many, Officer Hayes? Don't answer that, Brennan snapped. But Hayes was cracking. His hands trembled. He opened his mouth. Brennan's radio crackled. Unit 12, status update. Brennan keyed his mic. Situation contained. One subject detained pending transport. The voice on the radio paused. Copy that. Sergeant Mallory en route to your location. Marcus's blood went cold. They were calling in a supervisor. That meant paperwork. Formal charges? This was escalating beyond a street stop. Diana pushed forward. Marcus hasn't done anything wrong. This is illegal. Ma'am, final warning. No. Diana's voice cut like glass. I'm an attorney. I know my rights. I know his rights. You have no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion, nothing. Let him go or I'm filing suit before sunrise. Brennan smiled then, a cold, knowing smile that told Marcus everything. Your lawsuit is welcome, ma'am. We follow procedure here, the crowd murmured. Someone shouted, this is wrong. Another voice, let him go. Marcus's phone buzzed in the evidence bag. The screen lit up despite the cracks, and everyone could see the caller ID, James Webb, U.S. Attorney General. Hayes went pale. He stared at the phone, then at Marcus, then at Brennan. Brennan's confidence finally cracked. "That's... You can't..." Marcus met his eyes. "That's my brother. And he's very interested in cases of civil rights violations." The street fell silent except for the hum of traffic and the click of phone cameras capturing everything. Brennan stared at the phone like it was a live grenade. Hayes took an involuntary step backward. The crowd pressed closer, sensing the shift. "Answer it," Marcus said quietly, "or uncuff me and let me answer." Brennan's hand moved toward the evidence bag, hesitated, withdrew. His training warred with his instinct for self-preservation. "This doesn't change the situation. You were detained on reasonable suspicion." "Of what crime?" Diana's voice cut through. "Walking? Existing? Being black in Georgetown?" The phone stopped ringing. 30 seconds later it rang again. Hayes found his voice. "Brennan, maybe we should..." "Stay in your lane, rookie." But Hayes wasn't looking at Brennan anymore. He was looking past him down the street, where a black SUV had turned the corner. Government plates, tinted windows. It moved with the kind of authority that made other cars pull aside. The SUV parked directly behind the patrol car. The engine died. For 5 seconds nothing happened. Then the rear door opened. James Webb stepped out, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. He wore a charcoal suit tailored to perfection, a burgundy tie, and an expression that had made federal judges nervous. He was 52 but moved like someone younger, each step deliberate and controlled. 2 federal agents emerged from the front seats, a woman in her 30s, sharp-eyed, and a man built like a linebacker. They flanked James but hung back, letting him lead. James walked toward his brother. He didn't hurry, didn't need to. Every eye tracked him. He stopped 3 feet from Marcus, studied the handcuffs, then lifted his gaze to Officer Brennan. "Explain." "One word. Quiet, devastating." Brennan straightened, trying to reclaim authority. "Attorney General Webb, sir, we received a call about suspicious activity. This individual matched the description. We're following standard protocol." "What description?" "Black male, 40s, dark clothing." James let that sit for a moment. "That describes roughly 40% of the men in a 10-block radius. We have to investigate all reports, sir. What crime was reported?" Brennan hesitated. "Loitering. Possible trespassing." Marcus's eyes widened slightly. The lie was evolving, growing more specific. James turned to the crowd. "Did anyone here call the police to report suspicious activity?" Silence. People shook their heads. Catherine, the restaurant manager, stepped forward. "I certainly didn't. Mr. Webb is a valued customer." James nodded slowly, then looked back at Brennan. "So you detained my brother, a decorated Marine veteran, non-profit director, and law-abiding citizen, based on an anonymous call that may or may not exist, describing characteristics shared by thousands of people. Sir, I understand this is personal for you, but badge number." Brennan provided it. The female agent wrote it down in a small notebook. James stepped closer to Brennan, close enough that their conversation became semi-private. "Uncuff him, now." Hayes moved immediately, reaching for his keys. But before he could free Marcus, another patrol car arrived. Sergeant Dennis Mallory emerged from the second patrol car with the confidence of someone who'd worn the uniform for 30 years. He was late 50s, gray at the temples. With the kind of face that had stopped smiling decades ago, he assessed the scene, the crowd, the cameras, the Attorney General, and didn't flinch. Attorney General Webb. Mallory's voice was respectful but firm. "I'm Sergeant Mallory, supervising officer for this district." James turned. "Sergeant, I understand your concern for your brother, but with respect, this is a local matter. My officers were responding to a legitimate call. Show me the call log." Mallory smiled thinly. "That's department records. I can't release those without proper channels." I can have those channels opened in under an hour. I'm sure you can, sir. But right now your brother was interfering with a police investigation. Officer Brennan had reasonable cause to detain him. Marcus felt the ground shifting. Mallory was smooth, practiced. He was reframing the narrative in real time. Diana stepped forward. That's a lie. Marcus was walking to dinner. He committed no crime. Mallory addressed her with calculated courtesy. Ma'am, I understand you're upset. But civilian oversight of police operations requires due process. If your husband feels he was wronged, he can file a complaint. He shouldn't need to file a complaint. He should never have been detained. James raised a hand slightly, a gesture that told Diana to pause. She did reluctantly. James studied Mallory. You're protecting your officers. I'm supporting my officers who were doing their jobs, even when their job involves racial profiling. Mallory's expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation. I'd be careful about making it without evidence, the crowd murmured. Phones captured everything. Marcus watched his brother calculate the angles, assess the risks. James could pull rank, could make calls, could bring the weight of the Department of Justice down on this precinct. But Mallory knew something James knew too. Optics mattered. If the Attorney General strong-armed local police, the story became about federal overreach, not justice. Mallory pressed his advantage. Your brother can be released with a citation, or we can continue this downtown. Your choice. Marcus felt the trap closing. A citation meant admitting guilt, even for something fabricated. Downtown meant processing, fingerprints, mugshots, images that would define him forever. James met Marcus's eyes. A silent conversation passed between them, years of brotherhood compressed into seconds. Then Hayes spoke up, his voice shaking but clear. Sergeant, I don't think we should, Officer Hayes, secure the perimeter. Mallory's voice cracked like a whip. Hayes opened his mouth, closed it, then walked away, but not before shooting Marcus a look of pure anguish. James turned back to Mallory. This isn't over. Mallory nodded. I expect it isn't, but tonight it is. Marcus felt his brother's frustration, his rage, his helplessness. James had all the power in the world, except the power that mattered in this moment. Brennan's smirk returned, subtle but visible. They released Marcus with a citation for failure to comply with lawful orders. No arrest, no booking, just a piece of paper that said he'd done something wrong. James stood beside Marcus as Brennan removed the handcuffs. Marcus's wrists were raw, red marks already forming. Diana rushed to him, wrapped her arms around him, buried her face in his shoulder. The crowd dispersed slowly, reluctantly. The show was over. Tomorrow they'd scroll past the video between cat memes and celebrity gossip. Catherine apologized profusely. Your reservation is still available. On the house. Marcus shook his head. Thank you, but no, he couldn't eat now. Couldn't pretend. The anniversary dinner, 15 years of building a life together, reduced to just another casualty of someone else's hatred. James spoke quietly to his agents, then approached Marcus. Come to my place. We'll talk there. Marcus nodded, unable to trust his voice. They drove in silence, Diana's car following James's SUV through the darkening streets. Marcus stared out the window, watching Georgetown give way to Dupont Circle, then to James's neighborhood in Kalorama. Inside James's home, a townhouse filled with books and photographs, Marcus finally collapsed onto the couch. Diana sat beside him, holding his hand. James poured 3 glasses of scotch. He handed them out, then sat across from Marcus. I'm sorry, James said. Marcus looked at his brother. You have nothing to apologize for. I should have done more, so you did everything you could. Mallory boxed you in. Diana's voice was quiet. This happens every day, doesn't it? James nodded. Yes, to people who don't have brothers in high places. Yes. Marcus thought about Hayes, the young officer who'd looked sick, who'd almost spoken up, who'd been silenced. He thought about the citation in his pocket. He thought about his students who'd see the video, who'd learn the lesson he'd tried so hard not to teach them. Your excellence doesn't matter. Your service doesn't matter. Your humanity doesn't matter. Diana's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then showed Marcus. The video had already gone viral. 2 million views. Justice for Marcus trending. But Marcus didn't feel vindicated. He felt hollow. James leaned forward. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Marcus met his brother's eyes. Do you want justice? Real justice? Or do you want this to go away? Marcus stared at his brother. What are you asking? James set down his glass. I can make this disappear. Quiet settlement. The department issues an apology. Officers get reprimanded behind closed doors. Your record stays clean. Life goes back to normal. Or we fight. Publicly, loudly. We turn this into the case it should be. Diana squeezed Marcus's hand. What does that mean? James stood pacing. It means investigation. It means deposing officers, examining patterns, potentially uncovering systemic issues. It means Marcus becomes the face of something much bigger than tonight. You think there's something bigger, Marcus said quietly. I know there is. James pulled out his phone, typed quickly, then showed Marcus the screen. I had my team pull preliminary data while we drove here. Officer Brennan has been involved in 17 stops of black men in Georgetown over the past 2 years. 16 of them resulted in citations or arrests. 15 of those were later dismissed or dropped. Marcus felt something ignite in his chest. He's hunting. He's profiling, systematically. And Sergeant Mallory has been covering for him, Diana stood. Then we have to fight. But James held up a hand. Understand what you're choosing. The department will come after Marcus. They'll dig into his life, his finances, his nonprofit. They'll look for anything to discredit him. The media will be relentless. His face will be everywhere. His students will be questioned. His staff interviewed. I don't care, Marcus said. You should care. Because they'll make you care. They'll make this so painful, so invasive, so exhausting, that you'll wish you'd taken the settlement. Marcus thought about his mother, about her pressing their clothes, polishing their shoes, teaching them that excellence was armor. It hadn't been enough armor. But maybe it could be a weapon. How many others? Marcus asked. What? How many other people has Brennan done this to? People who didn't have a brother in high places? James was quiet for a moment. Probably dozens. Maybe more. Then I'm not fighting for me. I'm fighting for them. Diana nodded. We're fighting for them. James studied his brother, then smiled. The first real smile since he'd arrived. Okay, then we do this right. He pulled out a legal pad, started writing. First, we file a formal complaint. Not through the department, through my office. Civil rights violation. We document everything. Every witness, every video, every frame of footage. What about Hayes? Marcus asked. James looked up. What about him? He wanted to speak up. Mallory shut him down. You think he'll testify? I think he's the weak link. He's young, scared, he knows this was wrong. Diana pulled up her phone. I recorded everything. Hayes's body language, his reactions, it's all there. James nodded slowly. If we can flip Hayes, we can crack this open. Marcus remembered Hayes's face. The anguish, the guilt. He's not like Brennan. He's just caught in a bad system. Then we give him a way out, James said. We offer immunity in exchange for testimony. They worked through the night, building strategy, reviewing evidence, calling witnesses. Catherine agreed to testify. 3 other people from the crowd provided statements. Diana's video was crystal clear. By 3 a.m. they had the framework of a case. James stood stretched. This won't be easy. Marcus looked at his brother. Nothing worth doing ever is. 2 weeks later, Officer David Hayes sat in a conference room at the Department of Justice. His lawyer, provided by his union, sat beside him, stone-faced. Across the table, James Webb and 2 civil rights attorneys waited. Marcus watched through one-way glass from an adjacent room. Diana stood beside him, her hand in his. James opened a folder. "Officer Hayes, thank you for coming." Hayes's voice was barely audible. "I didn't have much choice. You always have choices. That's why we're here." James slid a photograph across the table. "Do you recognize this man?" Hayes glanced down. It was Marcus, handcuffed against the patrol car. "Yes?" "Tell me what you remember about this night." Hayes's lawyer started to intervene, but Hayes spoke over him. "We got a call. Anonymous tip about suspicious activity. Brannon said we should check it out. Had you received similar calls before?" Pause. "Yes." "How many?" "I don't know. Dozens, maybe." James pulled out another photograph. A young black man, early 20s, dressed in a suit. "Do you recognize him?" Hayes's face went pale. "That was 3 months ago. His name is Daniel Freeman, Stanford graduate. He was walking home from an interview. Officer Brennan stopped him for matching a description. Mr. Freeman was held for 2 hours before being released. No charges. He filed a complaint. The complaint was dismissed." James laid out more photographs. "Each one a different man. Each one black, each one stopped by Brennan. Officer Hayes, how many of these stops were justified?" Hayes's hands shook. His lawyer gripped his arm, but Hayes pulled away. "None of them," Hayes whispered. The room went silent. James leaned forward. "Say that again." Hayes looked up, tears in his eyes. "None of them were justified. Brennan would get these calls. I don't even know if they were real calls. And he'd say we needed to check them out. But it was always the same. Black men, nice neighborhoods, no actual crime, just Brennan's instinct. And you went along with it. I was a rookie. I thought that's how it worked. I thought we were supposed to trust senior officers. When did you realize it was wrong?" Hayes's voice broke. "The first time. But I didn't know how to stop it." Marcus watched through the glass, feeling something shift inside him. Hayes wasn't evil. He was complicit. There was a difference, a painful, important difference. James slid a document across the table. "This is an immunity agreement. You testify truthfully about Officer Brennan's pattern of stops, about Sergeant Mallory's knowledge of these stops, about the department's culture, and you walk away clean." Hayes's lawyer started to protest, but Hayes cut him off. "What happens to my career?" "That depends on you. You can be part of the problem or part of the solution." Hayes stared at the document for a long moment. Then he picked up the pen and signed. 3 days later, the Department of Justice announced a formal investigation into the Georgetown Police District. Brennan was suspended. Mallory was placed on administrative leave. Hayes was transferred to a different district, pending review. The story exploded. Every network ran it. Marcus's face was everywhere, but so were the faces of 17 other men. Brennan's victims, now visible, now vindicated. Marcus did interviews, testified, spoke at town halls. He became the face of something bigger than himself, exactly as James had warned. It was exhausting, invasive, relentless, but it mattered. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the Anacostia Community Center again. Same room, same kids, different lesson. Keisha, the little girl who'd asked about heroes, raised her hand. "Mr. Marcus, did you really make those police officers go to jail?" Marcus knelt to her level. "Not jail, but they can't hurt anyone else now. Because you're brave? Because I had help. My brother, my wife. A young officer who chose to tell the truth. And people like your mama, who marched and protested and demanded change." Another kid spoke up. "My daddy says nothing ever changes." Marcus thought about that. Change is slow, and it's hard. But it happens when people refuse to accept what's wrong. The Georgetown Police District had been overhauled. New leadership, new training, new oversight. Officer Brennan had resigned before he could be fired. Sergeant Mallory had retired, his reputation destroyed. Officer Hayes had testified in 3 subsequent civil rights cases. He'd become an advocate for reform from inside the system. He'd called Marcus once, voice shaking, to apologize. Marcus had accepted. The settlement, because there was always a settlement, had gone entirely to Warrior's Path. Marcus had tripled his staff, opened a second location, and launched a program specifically for police reform and community relations. He and Diana never made it to Rosewood for their anniversary, but they'd had 15 more anniversaries since then. The marriage had survived. Strengthened even, James had used the case as a springboard for broader reforms, legislation, oversight, accountability measures that actually had teeth. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. Marcus finished his presentation and the kids dispersed. Mrs. Patterson approached, smiling. "You're good at this. I had good teachers. Your mother would be proud." Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest. "I hope so." As he packed his materials, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you for not giving up. You saved my son from the same officers." Daniel Freeman's mother, Marcus, stared at the message. Then he saved the number and replied, he saved himself. "I just helped people listen." That evening, Marcus drove past Rosewood. He didn't stop. Didn't need to. The restaurant was just a building. The street just a street. The memory just a scar. Painful but healed. He thought about his mother's words. "The world will judge you by different standards." She'd been right. But she'd also taught him something else. Standards could change. Not easily. Not quickly. But permanently if enough people refused to accept them. Marcus pulled into his driveway. Diana's car was already there. Through the window he could see her in the kitchen, laughing at something on her phone. 15 years, 16 now. Her lifetime of moments that mattered more than one night in handcuffs. He thought about Officer Hayes, about the choice to speak up, about how courage sometimes wore a uniform too. He thought about the 17 other men whose stories were finally told, whose dignity was finally restored. He thought about the kids at Anacostia, who'd seen him fall and rise, who'd learned that justice wasn't given. It was fought for. Day after day, case after case, choice after choice. His phone buzzed again. "James, proud of you, little brother," Marcus smiled. "Right back at you." He got out of the car and walked toward his house. The porch light glowed warm against the darkness. Inside, Diana was singing, "Off-Key Beautiful Home." Marcus paused at the door, turned back to look at the street. Quiet, ordinary, safe, for now. For tonight. And tomorrow he'd fight to make sure it stayed that way. His mother had taught them to be twice as good. But she'd also taught them something more important. Be persistent. Be unbreakable. Be undeniable. Marcus Webb had been all three, and he'd helped others become the same. He opened the door and stepped inside, leaving the darkness behind, carrying the light forward.